MagMongoSlade. MagMongoSlade.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Now, I want to tell people, they asked the question, what makes this channel different from some of the other quote-unquote anti-smart YouTubers out there? For starters, I don't consider myself an anti-smart. I just talk about things that I like and don't like. I don't really concern myself with what a lot of other people like. I'm not exactly anti anybody. I'm not anti-smarts. If the smarts are right, they're right. If they're wrong, which is quite often, then they're wrong. I'm not an anti-smart, all right? I am, however, a lover of smug smarkdom. It's my favorite. The voices of wrestling kind of stuff. I love it, and I found a new guy. You may know who he is. I have no idea who this guy is until today. His name is Joseph Montecillo. I think he might be Cuban or some flavor of Latino. But he wrote up a review of the main event of WrestleMania XL Sunday that I think is absolutely hilarious. And it's pure smug smarkdom. And we got to go through it, okay? I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I don't want to bore you guys to tears. But we're going to talk about this thing. For starters, as you guys know, the smarks, they don't like them from WWE. They don't like that. But some of these guys, they hate, individual pieces a lot more than the whole. In this situation, this guy hates WWE, for starters. Secondly, he ain't no fan of Cody Rhodes. No. He do not like no Cody Rhodes. So he begins the article saying that it's not the worst WrestleMania main event of all time. He said that, but then you go right to the bottom, and he rated the match 1 3/4 stars. Said that the start of the match is 2.5 in the ring, and a dud in the soul. Feels bad classic. A feels bad classic. Oh my word. It's not the worst WrestleMania main event of all time. It's just 1 star. So it's not the worst, but it gets one of the worst possible grades from this guy. How is it possible? I don't know, man. I'm not here to explain anything. I'm here to laugh and joke and have fun. This guy, we got to get into why he gave this match, what was this, 1 3/4 stars, and said it's a feels bad classic. We got to, my goodness. This is absolutely hilarious. Let's get right to the meat of the matter. After he talked about some of it was a very short, maybe 2 paragraphs about the things that he liked, which he gave Roman some credit, which I'm surprised to see. He starts tearing into Cody Rhodes. For starters, he says that Cody's punches suck. That's, the dusty jabs. He doesn't like that. He gave Cody some credit for taking power bombs, but he says the biggest struggle with Cody Rhodes is that I just cannot root for him. This is a bigger problem than the match. I find his presentation and his character so deeply unlikable, even within the crazed context of being a top WWE babyface. He is such a shocking outlier to the company's own traditions that I can't understand why he's been so widely accepted. In a company whose heroes have long positioned themselves as blue-collar men of the people, Cody Rhodes comes out here in his bleach blonde hair and $1,000 suits, and it just makes me want to hurl. Perhaps this figure speaks more to working class America in the 2020s than I know now. But every time it appears on my TV with his grotesque pimping of the aesthetics of raging Americana, I just can't stand it. Amazing. Truly amazing. This guy is amazing. All right. This guy's great. This boy's good. All right. So he finds Cody deeply unlikable. All right. Okay. Says that Cody is is a shocking outlier to WWE and their aesthetics and history or whatever. Okay, let's see if he can explain why. He says the WWE was never a revolutionary force for good, but they at least tapped into a simple understanding that the everyday man likes to reject the corporation. For decades and decades, the suit itself was a visual tied to the company's top heels. It's such an indelible part of their company's canon that Stone Cold Steve Austin and Daniel Bryan, decades apart, made a part of their ascent to the top of the company be centered around rejecting being forced to wear a suit by their bosses. Cody Rhodes, though, he just likes those suits, brother. Oh, so this is actually a good argument here. It's about aesthetics. It's about Cody's character. Cody is a character who is wearing a suit. He wears a suit all the time. And some people may say, well, you got to dress for the job you want. That's one of the things you probably heard in your self-help classes, or you read a book or something to that effect. Cody is just dressing for the job that he wants. He wanted to be an executive in wrestling. He wanted to be a big star. He wanted to be a big shot. Like, some of the guys he grew up watching, Ric Flair being one of them. And he decided to adopt that. Now, in the WWE, to this guy's credit, because of Vince McMahon and his upbringing, which I know a lot of people tend to rag on Vince because he had a rich daddy, they forget that Vince never actually met his dad until he was a teenager. He spent most of his life in a trailer park. He eventually did meet his father. His father does have money, does own a wrestling promotion, and was very, extremely well off. And he managed to work his way up. He was born on second base and worked his way up. Cody is about the same way. Cody had a rich dad, but you're talking about Cody's dad had 2 other children to take care of and probably got destroyed financially multiple times throughout his career. And Cody had a kind of a tough upbringing. It wasn't all, well-made suits and, expensive foods. They struggled a little bit. Just because Dusty had money didn't mean Dusty always had money, which is what Cody has been trying to get to. And it's a traditionally American story, whether you want to believe it or not, that there's a lot of people who grew up with individuals, maybe even people themselves, who had money, who seemed to be set up for success. And then the rug gets pulled from underneath them and they start to struggle. This is what Cody Rhodes has been trying to tell you in terms of character work. He's not saying that he is the son of a plumber. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that despite everybody knowing who my dad was, sometimes he had to pawn his Rolex so that he can provide me with something. He didn't always have money. He had to go work for Paul Heyman because he had gone broke. People had to float him loans. The aesthetic of Dusty Rhodes, the character and the image of Dusty Rhodes wasn't the whole of Dusty Rhodes. That there was another side to it that was tough. And Cody knows that side better than most. And Cody is bringing that out. So when he wears the suits, he's not just adopting the aesthetic of upper class America. He is also showing you the wonderful dichotomy that was brought up in some media. I'll give you a good example. In, I believe it was Spartacus. There was a Roman senator in Spartacus. And one of the people says, I thought you were a man of the people. He says, I am a man for the people. I am not a man of the people. It's 2 different concepts. Being a man for the people means essentially you are above them, but you wish to help them rise, that you wish to see them do well. You want to help them. This is a political matter. To be a man of the people means that you and them share some kind of commonality, and seeing you rise should inspire them to rise as well. Now, Cody can't do that latter part. He can do the former, however. He's in a unique position. Ironically enough, it's the same position Roman Reigns was in, which is why the story between Cody and Roman makes so much sense. They have almost the same background in terms of both of their fathers being wrestlers. Sika was a successful wrestler, but he wasn't, wildly successful. He never made the same amount of money as like Dusty or anything like that. But Roman didn't grow up poor. He grew up pretty well off. His family did very well. And for all intents and purposes, he was born on second base. He seemed to have been a man for the people, which is what was so hard for him in order to attach to others. He didn't have the same background. He wasn't a Stone Cold Steve Austin. He wasn't a Daniel Bryan. He was a step or two above the average pro wrestler because he was born into this family who was just very tightly connected with the WWE. So it made failing harder. Success, not guaranteed, but it made failing harder. Cody was in the same situation. Okay? Remember, Cody had to basically push to get fired. He told about this in his documentary that he basically had to push in order to get fired because WWE was perfectly happy to have him on the roster doing absolutely nothing but getting paid for it because he was Dusty's son and they was willing to look after him. But that's not enough. And this is where the American dream element comes in, because he didn't just want to be mediocre. He wanted to go above and beyond. This is where the American dream is. Most people are mediocre. They have mediocre talent. They have mediocre education because it's spread out over millions of people. Their dreams are somewhat mediocre in terms of financial success and relationship success. Everybody has a similar concept in all of those endeavors. So for somebody to want to break free and to rise up through their own grit and talent, it takes a very unique position and a very unique person to want to do that. But let's get back to this article real quick because I kind of veered off into a different thing. He continues, Cody Rhodes' heroes are my enemies. He comes out at WrestleMania with his nightmare logo, clearly evoking the aesthetic of his on-record favorite pro wrestler of all time, Triple H, and it's fucking disgusting. On a WrestleMania weekend where Paul Hunterhurst Helmsley Levesque wants desperately for nobody to ask any question about Vince McMahon and to forcibly leave his mark on the product, Cody Rhodes is so willing to bend over backwards and bow down to the King of Kings, the Pontiff of Pain, the game himself. Fuck all that nonsense. How could I possibly root for you? Now we're not talking about Cody Rhodes, the character. Now we're talking about Cody Rhodes, the person. Cody Rhodes famously said that Triple H was his favorite wrestler. And his feelings were hurt when he never got up out of the muck and mire of the mid-card in his first run in WWE. Remember, I don't know if you guys really remember the article he put out when he got released. And in this article, it was written in 2016, so quite a while ago, 8 years ago. He explained why he quit WWE, and you can almost hear the heartbreak in this thing. So I'm going to read some of this too, because I think it adds a little bit of a rebuttal to what Mr. Monticello is saying, or whatever his name is. Cody Rhodes wrote, setting foot in the dingy old Greensboro Coliseum this past Monday can only be described for me as just a whimsical moment of clarity. At this point, most know that I have indeed asked for my release from WWE, but it's paramount in my mind for the fans of pro wrestling to have some answers and not be left with questions. A mini superlative can be used to describe my mentor in wrestling, but one I often forget about is fearless, and it's a trait I wish more of had been passed down my way. So there I was, standing in the very same locker room Ric Flair had dressed in before changing the wrestling pay-per-view closed circuit at the time, Game Forever, and capturing the NWA title at Starrcade 83. It's sad that after once again being benched off TV, that my fate in its said spot was instead to be relegated to watching a monitor advertising a returning star and kicking open my Toomey gear bag to find an outfit I had long outgrown and a face paint kit. Both Triple H and Vince McMahon have given me many fun and challenging opportunities in my career, and I showed my gratitude by always pushing for the best segment I could create, the most interest I could generate. They gave me the chance to train on the job with some of the most brilliant minds in our world, gentlemen like Arn Anderson and Fit Finlay. I would do this job for free, but that didn't stop WWE from always compensating me in a generous manner. My goal in pro wrestling has always been to win the WWE Championship, the one accolade in the game my father never obtained. And for a decade, I tried to convince both Vince and Triple H that I could be their star player, their varsity quarterback, if you will. But it seems we have reached the point where neither saw that in me. I sincerely appreciate Triple H's unflinching respect for my father and how he has acted as a custodian of history and honoring him since his passing. He did not owe me that same respect he gave Dream, but I thought I could earn it in time. One of the last discussions we had included him telling me that WWE is a play and everybody has their role and needs to act it their best. All I could think of to say was the best actors don't want the lesser roles. In the past 6 months, I had pleaded with WWE Creative and both of my bosses to let me roll the dice and once again be Cody Rhodes. I had pitched to every writer on the staff like a door-to-door salesman on how and why and when, and believe me, there are many of those who sought to help me. Brian James, Nick Foz, Jay Russo, Dave K, JBL, and Cole for letting me go wild on their YouTube show and a few others, I'm sure. But for all that, both head writers of Raw and SmackDown continued to not return my pitches or emails, and in face-to-face encounters tried to big league me by pretending to be on their clearly powered off laptops, barely willing to listen to an idea I considered beneficial to more than one talent. What's that expression? Don't take no for an answer? What do you do when you don't get an answer at all? So there I was, having done everything I possibly could do for 10 years to make the most out of both large opportunities and even the half-cocked ones like paint up your face like your brother. Chicken shit into chicken salad became my specialty. And with those worthy opportunities afforded me, I can only hope I fully executed. I've made the walk down the ramp at multiple WrestleManias, and I have had a WrestleMania match canceled while I stood at the curtain moments before my music hit. I felt like a bag of those brass rings. When it came for me to cash them in, I find I can't do so. And then he continues about leaving WWE. So, when you talk about a guy like a Cody Rhodes, and there's a lot of people who are, they have a problem with Cody. This Joseph Monticello guy is one of them. He's saying that he doesn't understand why the Cody Rhodes story works. How could anybody possibly root for Cody? As a person who I've always been a fan of Cody to a degree, but not, to this absurd, he should have been the world champion in the main event of WrestleMania. I don't know about that, but it is what it is. That's the world we live in now. I look at things from the perspective of people root for him because they know his story. That's what finishing the story is all about. That's why it works. It works because it's real. It works because it's true. It works because the seeds were planted 8 years ago. Not just my father is Dusty Rhodes, which is what most people have, dissolved Cody's career into. It's that this was a guy who was a lot like the average middle-class American. No, he's not dirt poor. No. He's comfortable, and he had a comfortable job, but he wanted more out of life. He found what he was doing unfulfilling. He found himself, he believed in himself and thought that he could do more. He was ambitious. And like people who want to be entrepreneurs or they want to be bosses themselves, he had to take it upon himself to go out and seek his fortune. That's why this works. All right. So I get it. People don't have to like Cody, but the story works on a fundamental level with Americans. Most Americans don't see themselves as poor. They see themselves as one good day at the office away from being in the upper middle class, one promotion away from being able to go on vacations and live the life that they want to live. Cody saw himself that way. He was perfectly fine. They would have kept him there forever. It would have released him eventually because 10 years, I mean, come on. But as long as he was Stardust and willing to grind it out, they was willing to keep him there to do it. Look at what they did with Dolph Ziggler. They kept him there forever. But he wanted more. And most people can see that. He did a really good job of expressing that. So the idea that people don't understand why Cody Rhodes works, I'm sorry. This is why it works. Is he glad handing to Triple H? He rejected Triple H when he went to AEW and he broke the throne and all this kind of stuff. That was out of frustration. That was out of bitterness. That was a fuck you to the guy that he went to and pitched ideas to and found that guy was not listening. Now he's looking at Triple H and saying, this is what you could have had 8 years ago. I could have been doing this the entire time. Now, it would not have been the same. It certainly wouldn't have been as emotional for people. But the talent was there. The ambition was there. But the story wouldn't have been real. Now the story is real. Now everybody has heard over the years how he struggled. And, but your daddy was dusty. Well, that's great. That's got his foot in the door. It didn't get him to the main event of WrestleMania. What got him in the main event of WrestleMania was his own hard work and his own ambitions. And he overworked to a degree where he's basically a Ken doll. And that's another issue we'll talk about some other time. So that's how people can root for Cody. Again, it doesn't matter whether you like him or not, because somebody can hate the most sympathetic guys in the world. Some people hate sympathetic baby faces. Some people like them. It's all about temperament and about, quite honestly, how the company plays into that character beat. Are they going to play into it in a way where it's going to get paid off in the end? And does you as a performer, can you connect with them? You might be sympathetic, but can you connect with them? Cody was able to create a connection with a lot of people. And I don't have a problem with that. I think that's actually fine. But let's get back into this article. Joseph Monticello. And then there's the promotional nonsense. I so despise the tricks the WWE tries to play with me here, leaning on the tradition of the Decade Mania and diluting it for this facsimile of heroism. Not only calling it the Cody movement to parallel Daniel Bryan's run of 2014, but also doubling down on the connection by giving Cody and Imagine Dragons hype vid here for the pay-per-view. I find it so upsetting how the contrast between the realest thing in the world and this absolute phony doesn't seem to bother the vast majority of the WWE fans here. So, as we just talked about, Cody is not a sympathetic babyface to the same degree as Daniel Bryan. But when you look at the stories, okay? The story of Daniel Bryan was against, Randy Orton and Batista. Randy Orton, handpicked WWE guy. Vince loves him. Triple H loves him. Everybody loves him. They say it all the time. If you could build a pro wrestler from scratch, he looked like Randy Orton. Daniel Bryan is against that, the corporate champion. At the time, Batista was also one of those guys. Big, jacked. He's a movie star. He looks the part. Then you got little stubby Bryan Danielson with his shaggy beard and his shaggy hair. And that's what he's up against. He looks like the little guy against the corporation. Here, as Monticello or whatever his name is, appropriately notes, Cody Rhodes kind of fits in. It's like American Psycho, where, he shows up to work and everybody's dressed the same. How does he differentiate himself from everybody else? Well, he differentiates himself from everybody else, not from having the exact same or a slightly off-white business card to try to get the upper hand on his peers is through work ethic. It's through ambitiousness. It's through taking the road less traveled. I mean, it was an extreme case. I mean, the guy left the company and helped found another one, brought that one up to a certain level of prominence, and then jumped back. That was a very round the way of doing things. And to continue the idea that he could have just been non-ambitious and gave up on that dream, he could have just stayed in AEW, been sitting behind a desk and not taking any bumps. Or he could have, turned himself into, Triple H and worked every once in a while, only the big shows, made a ton of money, and said, well, I didn't care about that WWE Championship anyway. On the other hand, though, this was a kid. He said he had a dream when he was a little boy. This is something he always wanted to achieve. And he didn't give up on it. He was young enough to achieve it. He put in the work. He went out there and did it. You don't have to love him to respect him. And a lot of people can see that, So while, no, he's not Daniel Bryan, is WWE trying to adopt a little bit of that? Yes, to a degree. Cody, compared to The Rock, when you compare Daniel Bryan was going to lose his WrestleMania main event to Dave Bautista, gigantic, jacked movie star, they brought in The Rock, right? And almost everybody with common sense said, oh, Rock and Roman Reigns? Hell yeah, I'm all about that. But there was a contingent who, for them, they have a sense of justice. And justice means to give people what is their due. They look at Cody and they say, this guy's been busting his ass. He deserves it. The Rock doesn't. And that's why all the Cody crybabies started to flare up. Cody deserves it. The Rock doesn't. If you'd have took somebody else and put them opposite Cody, then they may have... We had this with Sami Zayn, in 2023. When more people looked at Sami Zayn, it was like, man, Cody is a corporate guy. He walks around in a suit and all this kind of stuff. Look at Sami Zayn. He's shaggy and kind of beardy and he looks like he stinks. But the guy works hard. He probably deserves it more. And then they beat him and got him out of the way. So then everybody's like, oh, okay. But he got his shot. He got his shot and he lost. In this situation, people wanted Cody to get his shot, to give him his due. Give him what he worked for. Because what's deeply American is the idea that people believe that if you work hard, you should get what you worked for. That's the core of America. If you work hard, you should get what you worked for. The Rock didn't work for it. Cody did. So that's why people got behind Cody. And it's all about the characters involved. If you'd have put somebody else in that position, just like when Sami Zayn, most sympathetic guy on the planet, people got mad because Chad Gable worked for it. All you got to do is take your hatred of Cody out of it and put other people in that place. And you can see why it worked. And whether it was on purpose or whether it was a pivot or whatever the case may be, it ended up working. But let's finish up this article. There's still a couple of paragraphs left. I'm talking more than I thought I would. Having it happen here, he says, in service of the corporate hero of the WWE to date, just feels so wrong and so self-congratulating for what the WWE has always wanted. The brand is bigger than any person. All things in service of the almighty Titan Towers, individuals merely a vehicle for uplifting the corporation and making a profit. In any other context, I might concede that I'm overreaching and projecting ill feelings about the company onto the match. But it cannot be avoided that this is the literal text of what happens here. Don't believe me? What does Cody do after winning the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship? He gets on the mic not to thank his mother or his father, who was the motivation for this storyline to begin with, or the fans or anyone else, but rather to pay homage to the real heroes of this story, Iron Cross enthusiast terrorizing Hunter, Paul the Game Levesque, Hearst, the cerebral assassin Helmsley, and noted Vince McMahon crony Bruce Brother Love Pritchard. Two men whose knowledge of Vince McMahon's sexual misconduct remains in question and whose creative direction within the company I find wildly overrated at best and infuriating at worst. Fuck those two. They've not earned my goodwill nor the benefit of the doubt. Vomit-inducing bootlicking. No wonder Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins get along so well. He called him a bootlicker. Well, I can say I actually agree with that part. You know, the idea of not thanking his mom, not thanking the fans, but thanking Triple H, you know. Now, you might want to say in character, he thanked Triple H because Triple H made the decision to keep The Rock out of that title match and to make sure Cody got it. And, you know, that was more of a Triple H call. You know, and I guess in kayfabe, they can say that that's what that is. Because Triple H, remember, he came out there on SmackDown and said that, you know, nobody has authority over him and all this kind of stuff. And he talked about The Rock's perceived authority. The Rock can't make any calls. So basically what he's saying is he thanked Triple H for giving him the opportunity. But Bruce, what the hell does Bruce need to do there? Bruce shouldn't even be out there. So you want to think that he's a crony and a bootlicker? That's a good point. I'm not even going to, I concede that point. That's a good point. And he continues by saying, I just can't look past the masturbatory elevation of the rotten institution of the WWE and the men in charge of protecting it. If the wrestling and the wrestlers involved were better, they might have helped me forget. But instead, they seemed determined to remind me. Hunter Month never ends, and none of us can ever escape. Wow. This is amazing. This is truly amazing. He couldn't find anything wrong with the match. Not really, anyway. There was nothing egregiously wrong with the match. He just didn't like that Cody won because he doesn't like what Cody represents and doesn't think that Cody should represent the fans and that Cody is plastic and fake and all these sorts of things, which is all, again, a matter of opinion. I don't really care about that. But to say that the match sucked because you don't like the people in it and you can't find anything wrong with it, you don't have a problem with the psychology. You don't really have a problem with the storytelling. In fact, he put over the storytelling and talked about how good it was and how it reminded him of, you know, January 4th, 1999. That's when Mick Foley won the title, which was part of the goal there is to, you know, pull Cody up much like a Mankind or a Daniel Bryan. So they went full, you know, naked underdog babyface. But, you know, this was part of the story from the previous year is that Cody had the match won and then the Bloodline came out there and helped Roman win. Now they formed like Voltron, all the baby faces, and they helped Cody get over the top. They helped him get a fair match and he won, which is, you know, the goal here, you know. But to say that you can't find anything wrong with the match and still say that the match sucked, it kind of invalidates your opinion of wrestling. Like you went through all of this stuff and couldn't find that the psychology was bad, that the work was bad, that the bumps sucked, that things were stupid or whatever. Our whole argument is fuck Cody Rhodes, Triple H, and Bruce Pritchard. And you could have just wrote that and most people would have been like, yeah, hell yeah. You could have wrote that in a tweet. But then again, I guess you wouldn't be able to solicit donations off that. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.